Here's the question. I've tried carnivore twice, failed day 9 and then day 16. I always lose 15 to 20% strength in the gym. And as the days progress, I feel worse and worse. Is this just not for me?
You're coming from a lifetime of being fueled by glucose. Your whole gut microbiome is geared up to processing specific things for nutrients. And now you're taking that energy away. You're taking that, you're changing your whole gut microbiome. So you're altering the firmicutes and bacteroidetes. And it takes time to upregulate. And you need to be able to assimilate those fats and proteins effectively. And it's a transition period. So initially you have that drop in insulin, which is signaling the kidneys to release sodium from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys. And with that fluid loss and that sodium loss, this leads to what's known as keto flu, or was once known as the Atkins flu. So sodium is incredibly important. Lots of sodium can compensate for much of the loss, because it's not, you're not losing muscle, it's volume in the muscle. So maybe supplement with creatine as well. But there is an adaptation period, and it can take, Stephen and I have spoken to various listeners and personal experiences. It took me nearly 12 months to fully adapt, but the general consensus is 3 to 6 months to fully adapt. Strength, everything will drop off a cliff initially, but you need to make sure that you persevere, keep the protein in, keep the fat in, get plenty of electrolytes, make sure the potassium and sodium ratio is accurate. Don't fear the fat, because now you need to signal the body to transition into burning fats. You can do this through, potentially supplementing with an MCT powder or exogenous ketones also, but salts are super important. So you can use electrolytes or salt your meals with like a pink Himalayan or a Celtic sea salt. But it is very common. I think almost everybody who's transitioned into this lifestyle has experienced that. And it took me maybe 2 or 3 weeks until I started to feel any sort of benefit at all, or even any resemblance of my previous self, because I've explained before that I genuinely thought that I was going to die. But I was so unhappy with the way that I looked and various other factors in my life that I persevered. And one day I woke up and I felt the best that I had ever felt. So how you go about this is incredibly important. But salt, protein, and fat are 3 of my main pillars that I would strongly recommend. Consistency is key.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at it. I just take a bit of a broader approach. Your body, all the mechanisms in your body have got to change. Everything's got to change. You've got to adapt. And I often talk about the fact that I'm pretty good at tennis. All right. Now, this might sound a bit out there, and I've won a singles title. Now, if you've never played tennis before and you gave me a game, you possibly would want to give up, because you've never played tennis before, you don't know how it works, you don't know how to serve, you don't know how to hit the ball and all this sort of stuff. And maybe after day 9, you'd want to give up, because maybe you wouldn't be making the progress. But if you had a good coach and someone saying to you, well, stick with it, this is what everybody, like Rich just said, this is what everybody goes through, don't worry. I was a learner once, just stick with it. And then you get to day 16 and another day when you think you're going to give up, and say, look, you are getting better. There are these little changes you're maybe not aware. You've just got to stick with it. And that's what your body's doing. It's just adapting. And sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to make 1 step forward. But eventually, as you become less and less dependent on carbs, what happens is there is a flip in this. And you might go back to carbohydrates after, let's say, doing it for 3-4 months, and you find that the carbohydrates that made you feel fantastic, or you thought made you feel fantastic, the effect it would have would be awful. And then going back to a high carbohydrate diet would be difficult. And after day 9, you thought, I can't do this any longer. I want to go back to feeling really good like I did on Carnivore. So there is many ways to look at this, but I think listening to the right people and getting the right electrolytes is key. And I hope that's a good answer for you.
Ooh,